Welcome back to Just Scrap Radio on BJPen.com. I'm your host, Cole Shelton. Episode 125, we got a good lineup here ahead of UFC 289. First up, we're going to be joined by one half of the co-main event and Beneil Dariush to preview his fight against Charles Oliveira. Really good chat with Beneil about obviously the fight being rescheduled and getting the chance to fight Charles. He also revealed that he offered to fight Arman Sarukian after Charles pulled out, and when Arman was in need of opponent, he said he just wanted to fight. He wanted to really prove that he can beat anyone because he's confident he is the best lightweight in this division. But good chat with Beneil, who said a win over Charles secures himself that title shot against Islam in October in Abu Dhabi. We're then going to be joined by Dan Ige to preview his main card fight against Nate Landwehr. This fight has fight of the night written all over it. Dan's really excited about this one. He knows he has to string together some wins, obviously coming off that nice knockout win over Damon Jackson in January. Snapped his 3-fight losing streak, but you look who he lost to, Korean Zombie, Josh Emmett, Movsar Evloev. Dan knows that he could have won those fights, but he thinks he's really made the adjustments and he thinks he's going to start stringing together some wins. He's fine fighting these guys that are unranked and just really looking forward for these fun fights and getting his confidence back and getting that mojo back of doing string together some wins and get back fighting those top 10, top 5 guys. We're then going to be joined by Kyle Nelson to preview his fight against Blake Bilder. The Canadian Kyle Nelson, probably do or die for him at this point. He's 1-4-1 in the UFC, coming off that draw against Doo Ho Choi. Very close and competitive fight before that. Lost 2 straight to Jai Herbert and Billy Quarantillo. He's remaining at featherweight. He says he got the weight down. He likes having the full camp, but fighting back home in Canada for the first time since his UFC debut against Diego Ferreira, which he took on just about a week's notice and obviously lost in the second round, but had some success early on. He's really looking forward to fighting back in Canada, and he thinks Bilder, even though he is undefeated, he thinks he can finish him and knock him out. He thinks Bilder has a lot of striking defense issues. And then we close things out talking to Jasmine Jasudavicius to preview her fight against Miranda Maverick. This is a tough fight for Jasmine. Jasmine coming off a win over Gabriel Fernandez, but now fighting Miranda Maverick, who's in the top 15, lost to Aaron Blanchfield on a very questionable loss to Macy Garber, since then has won 2 straight fights. But Miranda's a very good wrestler. Jasmine's really prepared for that. But she says she thinks fighting at home in Canada is going to really give her the edge, and fighting with her teammates and Mike Malott and Kyle Nelson's really going to help her. But be sure to share the show, subscribe, and tune in next week for another episode of Just Scrap Radio. All right, we're jumping UFC lightweight Beneil Dariush, who's got a big fight in the co-main event UFC 289. Beneil, how's it going, man?
It's going good, man. Good to be with you.
Yeah, always enjoy talking to you. Feel like this should have been a couple months ago, though, this interview. Like, how kind of frustrating has the
Uh,
months been for you?
oh, it's definitely been frustrating, but we figure ways to work around it, and just gave me more time to kind of enjoy my family before I revamp up camp.
Obviously, you get the win over Gamrot, like an incredible performance. What after that? Like, was the plan to try to get onto that Australia card when Volk was fighting Islam?
I believe my goal was March
Yeah.
because my knee was a little bit messed up. I didn't realize it was as bad as it was because I fought with it and it felt fine. But once we did some imaging, it needed time to rehab. So I was hoping to do March, and Charles originally said March was fine. So I tried to jump on the March card, but that didn't happen. I offered to fight Fiziev in March or the UFC. I think the UFC mentioned the possibility of Fiziev, and I said yes to it, but it didn't materialize. And then they said we got to wait for Charles. I said all right. So March turned into April. April turned into May, which was official, and then it got pushed back to June, and now we're here.
And then I know when Arman kind of had his fight fall through, I know you offered, or I heard that you kind of
Yeah.
maybe offered. Was that true that you were interested in that fight as well then?
Yes. So when I didn't know at the time Morcano was out, but when I walked into the UFC office, I think it was on a Wednesday. I was, trying to figure out how we're gonna make this happen. I was at that time I was 3.5 weeks out from my fight, and so I told, I was talking to UFC. They're like, we're gonna have to push you guys back. And then I was like, at this point, why not just give me a title shot? I've
Mm.
pretty much proven myself to be number one contender, and they disagreed. And so one of the things I said was, I want to stay on the May 6th card. And why don't you guys find somebody to fight Moicano, and I'll fight Arman Sarukian. And they were a little bit surprised with that, when I said that. But then they thought about it, and I think they didn't go in that direction either. Obviously, my manager and my coaches were not happy with me saying that stuff, but and he told me before we went into the meeting, please don't say anything. But at that point, I was super frustrated, so I brought it up.
Why do you think the UFC doesn't think you are that next contender? Because like it seems pretty clear. Like I think you've been the next contender since like you beat Tony. Like I think that Gamrot fight, like
Yeah.
you didn't even really need.
Um, I think it's one of those things where I'm not in the public eye enough. I don't. They're worried it won't get enough views. I'm not big enough name, so they have to run a business, and it doesn't make sense to give a guy a title shot who isn't as popular as he should be with all the fights that I have, and so that's something I think that they worry about. So what they would like to do is keep throwing these guys at me, so I'll either be a stepping stone for somebody, or I'll beat so many people they'll be like, oh man, this guy's really good, and the world will kind of notice me. So that's kind of the game plan there, I think, from the UFC is either, he ends up being a stepping stone or he keeps beating people and, the world recognizes him.
With this fight against Charles, then like, to me, like I feel like the UFC probably hopes you win because I don't know if they really want to run back Charles Islam so soon right away, especially with how one-sided that fight was.
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, maybe, but if Charles is as popular as we think he is, there's no reason why they wouldn't want to run it back. If he is as popular as we think he is, and I think he's actually pretty popular. I
Mhm.
mean, he seems to be. He can't even walk around in Brazil. It's crazy, right? And I think, yeah, I don't know how he does on pay-per-views, but I think overall he's done well. So I think it's definitely possible they would do a rematch.
Do you think like you and Charles are pretty similar in the fact like people like overlook you? Because like I know even with myself with Charles, like I thought Chandler was gonna beat him. I thought Poirier was gonna beat him. Like, and then with you, like I know you're the underdog a lot. Like a lot of people expect you to lose a lot of these fights. Where it seems like you guys throughout your career have always kind of been the overlooked guys.
There are similarities for sure. I will say this though, with Charles when he came into the UFC so young, people were like, "Oh, this guy's going to be a world champion for sure." I never felt like I got that kind of attention. I will say that. People were like, "Oh, this guy's good," but they never really talked about me being a champion one day, right? They always seemed like they always thought I would be mid-level or like a little bit better than mid, but that's about it.
And then with this June fight, like, is this pretty much like if something happens to Charles here, like it has to be a title shot, or is there someone on standby? Like, what do you kind of know about that?
My understanding was if Charles pulls out, I'm guaranteed a title shot. So that's my understanding. But I'm just gonna leave it at that, I
Yeah.
guess.
With Charles, like, what did you make of his performance against Islam? Because like I thought Islam was gonna win, but I was surprised kind of how one side it was. But then like it's hard to just kind of base off that one fight because you look at everything Charles did before. Like he was running through a lot of these guys.
Yeah, Charles looked a little bit out of place. He looked overwhelmed by the situation, and it's not like him, because he fought a lot of big names and he wasn't overwhelmed. I think what really messed him up was the fact that typically the ground is his safe place.
Mhm.
He could use it as an opportunity to rest and recover. He didn't have that in this fight. When it went to the ground, he was in more danger than probably standing, and I think that was something that really threw him off.
And you're a very good grappler yourself, but do you think like Charles will be afraid of your ground game, or do you think he's gonna try to go after it like he has the other fighters?
No, I think ideally he'll want to be on top. He'll want to take me down and be on top. I think that's the ideal situation for Charles. Stand up and get me to the ground. That'll be like his ideal situation.
And Charles is like a pretty weird striker with the way he kind of throws things and lands things. Like, how do you kind of get ready for that?
I wouldn't call him weird. I would say he's very, very clean in terms of traditional Muay Thai. Throws great knees, throws elbows, throws kicks, push kicks, and then he does some surprising stuff like jumping push kicks and then things like that. So he's very diverse in his attack, and so you kind of have to be ready for everything, which is hard to do. But that's what makes getting ready for Charles so fun. I have to pay attention to so many different factors.
With Charles too, like I don't actually know if he gets hurt all that time or if it's kind of like playing possum where he falls to the ground a lot. Like, do you think he'll do that against you? Because like we've seen against like Gaethje and Poirier, like he kind of just fell down to the ground, like inviting him down to the ground. Or do you think because of your ground game, like he won't be doing that at this one?
I don't think so. I don't think that's going to be an option for him. I don't think that's going to be something he's going to want to do. But who knows, man? The guy's really, when he's confident, he's very confident. You know, he's the best in the world. So we'll see. I have no problem taking it to the ground. So if the fight ends up on the ground, great. If the fight's standing, great. It's gonna be going my way either way.
Did you ask, or like, was it a possibility of this being 5 rounds? Like, obviously, we just saw Bilal and Gilbert be a 5 round feature. Like, is that something you ever thought of, or is it just always 3 rounds?
No, it never really came up. And with a guy like Charles, you don't really need 5 rounds.
Yeah.
Look at his fights. He either kills or is killed within 3 rounds. So I don't think we really need 5 rounds, but I wouldn't mind if they made it 5 rounds. It would have been better. I think for someone like Arman Sarukian, Gamrot, 5 rounds makes more sense.
Mhm.
But I think with me and Charles, we'll we don't hide anything. Everything is very clear. We're gonna go out there and we're gonna do our thing.
Did you bring in anyone different for this camp, or is it just kind of the usual guys you've always been working with?
The usuals. I got Giga kicking me all the time. I got a couple other guys. I got good wrestlers. I got good jiu-jitsu guys. It's just naming Gracie's, trying to kill me every day. I got a really good team, man. Fortunately for me, I don't need to bring anybody in.
And especially like a guy like Charles, like, too, like you fought a ton of good grapplers in the past. You could grapple yourself. Like, how much do you think that kind of benefits you? Where it's not just like some of these guys that fight Charles, where they don't really want to be on the ground, where you're fine going out on the ground.
I think it's a huge benefit for me knowing that I've fought grapplers, knowing that I am a grappler, and knowing what he wants to do on the ground. It gives me good ability to prepare for him.
Do you look back at like what Islam was able to do to him and like on the ground, or do you think just because your kind of styles of wrestling is a bit different to get him down?
Our styles are so different. Striking wise, we're different, and even grappling wise, we're different. Makachev and I have very different grappling styles. I would say he's more on the defensive side when it comes to shooting and stuff like that. While I'm a little bit more offensive to the point where people will call it risky.
How do you kind of see it playing out? Like you mentioned before, like Charles is kind of a kill or be killed kind of guy.
That's pretty much exactly how I see it playing out. It's going to be kill or be killed. So either I end up killing Charles in this fight or he kills me. There's really no other way around it.
How much pressure, if any, is on you going to this one? Because like for so long, you've always been so close to the title, and like this kind of feels like the one where you get past Charles, like you finally get that title shot.
Uh, I don't. The title isn't the end of the world for me. I always say this. God has given me gifts, and I don't want to squander my gifts. That's the reason why I do this, and that's the reason why I train so hard, and I leave no stone unturned because I want to make sure I don't squander my gifts. But as far as pressure goes, man, I think pressure is also another God given tool. It's to make us better. So I do feel a lot of pressure, but I enjoy the pressure.
Oh, what do you think the reception's gonna be like for you? Like obviously up in Canada, like I've talked to some people, like I'm like on the East Coast Canada, so I'm not aware near Vancouver, but like I've talked to people and it seems like pretty split on who's gonna be like cheered or whatnot. Like it seems like there a lot of people are just more excited for the fight.
I think Charles is gonna get the cheers, and I'll get the boos. And that's what I'm typically used to. But like you said, you never know. Maybe there's gonna be a surprise for me in Canada.
And then obviously you get past Charles, it is Islam. Like, do you just imagine that's probably October in Abu Dhabi then?
That's what they told me because I asked for Makachev. I said, "Hey, why don't we just fight him in August or something?" And they're like, "No, we can't do that. He has to be safe for October." And I said, "All right."
Is that something like you kind of dreading is having to go back out to Abu Dhabi, or did you enjoy that experience when you fought Gamrot?
No, to be honest with you, Abu Dhabi, the people there were so kind, and I had so many people reach out to me to help me while I was there. Uh, Abu Dhabi was a great experience for me. I stayed for 2 weeks. Maybe this time I'll even stay longer.
And then were you surprised by how close kind of Volkanovski Islam was?
Mm, no, that's kind of how I thought the fight was gonna go. I personally, I thought he won 4 rounds, but three makes sense too. Like it was 3-2. It could have been 4-1. It could have been 3-2. To be honest with you, like if you're being really relaxed or whatever, you could have said it was a tie. It was a draw because the last round could have been a 10-9 round. But it just depends. But I thought Makachev won pretty clearly.
Did that fight like open any holes that you didn't see in Islam, or was it kind of stuff that Volkanovski has assessed that you kind of saw was in there for Islam?
So those were holes that I had not seen, but I believed he had. So I believe those were there, but no one had been able to expose them. And I saw a lot of what Volkanovski did expose them.
How much do you think that too is just like Islam fighting such a smaller guy? Like I feel like that has to throw him off a little bit, where he's not used to kind of those short punches and kicks coming at him.
I don't know because, for example, Drew Dober, I don't. What is he? 5'8",
Yeah,
5'7"?
he's pretty short too, I guess. Yeah.
He's fought Drew Dober and he fought the jiu-jitsu guy. I forget his name right now.
The Davy
Davi
Homage.
Ramos.
Yeah.
Exactly. He was short, and he had no problem with these guys. So it's not like he hasn't had experience fighting shorter guys. So I don't know about that one. It's I think it's just how good Volkanovski is. That's just a testament to how good he is.
And then just last thing, like obviously you get past Charles, it is Islam. Like, what would that kind of mean for you? Is that next fight is a title? Because it's been a lot of years and hard work for you to finally get to that spot.
It'll be wild. It'll be 10 years in the UFC and then finally get in a title shot, right? Like I don't know how long Bisping took or other guys took, but that's quite a while for me.
And it's not just like because you've lost fights or anything. Like you're on a good winning streak where
Yeah.
if like you're maybe like a poor day, like you only needed two of those wins to get a title shot. But unfortunately, it's kind of how the way things go for you.
Yeah, I've kind of put myself in this situation. I've always put my back against the wall, and it's really important why because I didn't want to change who I am. I
Mhm.
didn't want to pretend to be something I'm not, and so because I chose not to pretend, uh, it put my back against the wall, and I'm perfectly okay with it. That's just I would prefer it.
Actually, just one more quick thing is it seems like Connor Chandler later this year. Like, how do you think that kind of plays out?
Uh, if the fight does take place, I believe Chandler is stylistically the best. Yeah, I would say he's the best matchup for Connor, but at the same time, Chandler could definitely win the fight. He has all the tools to win the fight, but stylistically, Connor, that's his easiest fight in the top five
Yeah, I think it was like obviously a smart play by the UFC, and it's probably the most exciting fight too for however long it lasts.
for sure. I mean, Chandler just done a really good job getting his name out there. He's done a very good job. So, credit to him.
Well, Beneil, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this again.
Appreciate it, bro.
All right, we're joined by UFC featherweight Dan Ige, who's back in actually UFC 289 in Vancouver. Dan, how's it going, man?
Pretty good, man. Just in the midst of camp here, so I'm definitely feeling it. But I'm working hard, getting ready, and I just can't wait to go out there and have another awesome performance in front of a live crowd again.
And I actually have to cut down to 45. Like I know the UFC posts that thing at lightweight, but it is 45 though, right?
Yeah, I actually double checked my bout agreement, but it is 145. Um, that being said, it's like, yeah, you don't mind, like, you would never mind fighting a guy that's in your weight class at 155 just because, that's the 10 pounds of water weight we typically cut anyways. So we get down and we cut the 10 pounds. I think it would just make it a more fun or exciting fight. But the fight's at 145, that's the contracted weight, and I'm prepared to make it.
A bit longer of a layoff than what you expected, or about the time frame you wanted?
No, I think it's just about right. Right before my last fight, not knowing how it would go. It's so hard to always look past the fight, but in my head, I wanted to fight in January, June, and then one more time, whether it's November, December, end of the year. Um, that would be like a perfect scenario. Just to kind of always have something to aim for. So yeah, the June turnaround was nice. Um, I wasn't sure just the way the division was going, like where or who I would get matched up with. And yeah, it just so happened I got that dream fight that Nate Landwehr. It's a great fight in Canada. I'm super pumped up.
Yeah, well, obviously Nate's not a ranked guy, but a very fun fighter. A lot of his fights, like win or lose, are always exciting. So, like, is this someone you had your eye on, or were you hoping for a ranked guy, or did it not really matter to you?
Yeah, actually, it for me right now, it doesn't really matter fighting up or down in the rankings. I just want to put together some wins again. So, I've been given opportunities to fight into the rankings, and I think other guys definitely deserve it. When Nate shoot not his fight before, I was actually I was watching that fight, that super exciting one. What do you
Yeah,
fight, David
David
Onama?
Onama, yeah.
Yeah, crazy fight, and I was without an opponent. That was before I got the Damon Jackson call, and I was like, I thought that was a fight that was going to happen, and it didn't. But yeah, we ended up getting Jackson, and then he just went out and put on another great performance. So Nate's definitely a guy that earned it. He went out
Mhm.
there, he fought the hard way, and he's exciting. He's got a bit of a name. He's got a little bit of a persona that people like. So he's got a fan base. So it's a fight that makes sense. He's definitely earned it, but he's also exciting to where he brings a name value as well.
And going out to Vancouver in Canada in front of fans, like how excited are you to just be back in front of fans and going up to Canada as well?
I'm super excited to be honest. The last time I always want just fighting through the whole pandemic. I was pretty active, so I did a lot of those fights without fans, and then I randomly got like I fought Apex, and I fought. They gave me a T-Mobile event. I was just kind of going through like hard times, kind of in my own personal life, and I felt like I missed the moment. So I didn't truly get to embrace that moment with the fans, and that's what I'm most looking forward to. Um, Overall, I can't wait to go out there. It's a sold out arena, fighting in a great city, and it's going to be super fun.
And then staying on the same time zone as well, like, does that help travel as well? That's on the West Coast as well, so you don't have to kind of get used to a different time zone.
Yeah, so because I was I was here in Calgary and I was
Yeah.
hearing Vancouver, so I was like kind of already planning in my head. I was looking at flights. I think Calgary, it's like an 8 hour travel day. Vancouver's nonstop, like 2.5 hours. So, and we're on the same time zone. Um, that's definitely helpful. I'm gonna go out there Tuesday and just normal fight week and get to business and fly back home Sunday. I'll try to walk around a little bit, go check out Stanley Park. I think it's like right there on the water, real
Mhm.
nice. So yeah, I'm pumped.
And then you're also on the main card as well. What's that like for you to be on the actual pay-per-view part of the card?
Um, yeah, I'm grateful. I'm grateful just to fight, man. Um, it is cool to be on like a main card of a pay per view. That's something that's like a bucket list. That's a goal that you can check off. But regardless, I'm just grateful to be fighting. I signed a new 4-fight deal with the UFC, and I'm happy where I'm at, and I just got to keep going out there and competing and earning my way back to the top.
Did you fight out your deal on the last one, or was there still fights left and they just like you just kind of renegotiated?
Yeah, Jackson. I had one more fight after
Yeah.
that, so I chose. I thought it. You think of everything. I thought of my options. I thought I could go out there, fight one more time. I could fight it. I could play the free agent game, but like the UFC is where I want to be right now, and I don't plan on leaving.
With Nate, like always an excited guy, like very good striker, just kind of brings the fight to you. Like, how do you think you match up against him?
I think I match up, fairly well. It's definitely a fight if you make it a fight, and he's the guy that he always comes to bring it, and he's well rounded. He's got ground finishes, he's got TKOs, he's got a good kicking game, he's got good punches, good defense. Um, I think he's really well rounded. So that's what makes it exciting for me. And he's a showman. He wants to go out there and create excitement. Um, but regardless of who I'm fighting, I just go out there and I try to I want to make it a short, quick, easy night. You know, I don't get paid by the minute, so I try to go out there and finish fights as soon as I see that opening, whether it's, you know, a KO or a, you know, takedown, rear naked choke, guillotine, whatever's there, whatever presents itself. I'm definitely always looking for the finish.
And Nate's like a pretty weird guy where like he's super durable, but then like that Herbert Burns fight and the Orosa, like he just kind of got caught early, which like isn't usual for him. So like, is he kind of one of those guys where like you think it probably is going to go later just because like the history of his fights kind of show he can take some of those shots?
I don't know. I think he's durable against certain guys. You know, I don't think he'll be as durable against me, but you can't have that mindset. You have to prepare to. He's the most durable guy I've ever faced, and you know I'm prepared to go 15 minutes. But there's just a difference. I mean, he'll feel the difference for sure.
And then just the same kind of guys at Extreme and the PI you've been working with for this one, then.
Yeah, you know, Extreme's been great. I actually go there like 2 days a week, and I go to those team practices, and we just have a great group of guys that are always coming in and out of the gym. The rest of my practices I kind of build around, and I have a few guys that help me, and we just base those practices off of, you know, specifics for my fight pretty much. But yeah, the same guys. We just had a lot of guys that just fought. I was working a lot with Cody Stamen and Natan Levy. They're both fighting this weekend. And then before that, had Jeremy Kennedy, Kai, Mads, all those guys that fought in Bellator. So we just had a great room overall. Patchy. Yeah, I'm always trying to go with the best guys that I can and continue to grow and get better. The team is really just on fire right now, motivated, and I think the level of everyone is continuing to raise, and it's just exciting to be in that room.
And then who is going to be in your corner for this one then?
I'm bringing my head coach, Eric Nixick, James Gifford, my boxing coach, and Chase Pammy, my wrestling guy. So
you kind of talked about it a bit earlier, like you think you're going to finish them. It's like, how exactly do you kind of see it playing out then?
I have like two mindsets. I have an alter ego mindset that's just, yeah, I'm going to walk through this guy. And then I have the other mindset that's just scared, and I have to train as hard as I can because this guy's a monster and I want to, you know, I want to be at my absolute best. So I play both. You got to be careful. You can't lean too much one way. You get yourself in trouble. And I just have a balanced mindset. Like I'm confident in my ability to go out there and finish this guy any way, any type of way I can. And I have the ability to do that. But I'm also, it's just my preparation. I prepare as if I'm the champion that's fighting the best the contender that wants to take my belt. I can't take a guy any less. Like I can't have that mindset that I'm gonna walk right through the guy, because then why would I even train? So it's because of my training and my work ethic that gives me that confidence. But it's also, it comes from like you know, like I don't even know how to really put it into words. I can't not skip a step, if that makes sense. So I have to prepare my absolute hardest. But yeah, I'm excited.
And then I know when your fight got announced, like kind of the card was set, there's been a lot of people saying like, oh, this is the fight of the night or this is bonus worthy. Like, does that add any pressure where like people like trying to live up to those expectations, or like people are already saying like, oh, this has to be like this exciting fight or whatnot?
No, not really. I think it will be one of those fights for sure. It will be an exciting fight for as long as it lasts. I think someone will end up sleeping. I think the probability of him sleeping is higher, as I've never, you know, took a nap in the octagon, thank God. But yeah, it's just one of those fights. And I don't know, if you go back to my last 5 fights, I think that's usually the talk. It's going to be one of those fights like, this is going to be a great fight. Oh my gosh. Like people, it's a common theme. So it's not like it's not a nerve-wracking thing when people talk about that. And I think it's good that people talk about the fight. You know, it brings in more eyes and people want to see that.
You get past Nate. Like, I know he's not ranked. You are in the ranks. Like, where do you think that puts you? Like, what does he think that does for you at featherweight?
It would do the same thing for me that Damon Jackson did. It shows that I'm still here.
Hmm.
And I think I just have to keep doubling down. It doesn't matter. Obviously, I'm not going to move up in the rankings. I don't even know how those rankings work. This whole entire sport is all about timing and opportunity.
Hmm.
And I plan to see, sorry. I just plan to go out there and, establish my dominance and keep winning again. I've done it before. I've been on win streaks and I have to establish another win streak. It doesn't matter who I face, but as long as I keep winning and especially beating guys in a dominant fashion, I think that'll make a statement in itself and eventually give me those higher ranking fights to put myself back into a contender position. But right now it's just about, you know, getting some dubs.
You say you do get past Nate, like that's defending your spot kind of twice. Like, are you hoping a ranked guy is next? And like, do you care who's after this, or is it still just kind of stacking up these wins until you kind of get back into that top 5 mix?
Uh yeah, it's kind of I try it's so hard to play I do play that role too where I'm like the mad scientist. I try to put matchups together and see who's going to fight who, but at the same it's so unpredictable, man. Just things happen, people get hurt. Uh People are hurt when you want to fight. So honestly, I think a big ranked fight will come again. I definitely want another main event, whether it's this year or next year. So I like those 5 round fights. I haven't been successful in one yet, so I want to mark that off my list. I want a 5 round fight. I want to and win, um, and and then just build my name again. Those ranked fights will come. I'm not too worried of if the guy's ranked or not, as long as I'm winning and making statements.
Just a couple more things, just a bit on the division. Like, obviously, Volk, Yair's happening. Like, were you surprised, like, kind of just to get that fight made? Were you surprised how close Volk is on was? And then were you surprised Yair beat Emmett?
Uh, no, not really surprised to either of those. I think the Yair and MFI was already. I think I was leaning towards the Yair just a little bit, and but Emmett caught him with some hard shots. I don't know. He tended to gas himself out pretty quick. I don't know if you know, I'm sure he cuts a lot of weight. He's a pretty, big, bulky guy. But when you go out there and throw those big KO shots and you don't get that KO and you hurt a guy and you keep trying to finish him, like I understand it how you can get tired there. But yeah, that was good for Yair and Volk is for Volk to get that quick turnaround. That's great for the division. It
Mhm.
keeps it moving, and you got to respect the guy for that because he could be taking time off, spending time with his family, but he wants to stay active, and you got to respect the guy for that. And obviously, he keeps making money, he keeps getting these championship fights, so it's good overall for everyone. Um, yeah.
And then, like 2 weeks after you, is Emmett already returning against Taporia? Like, were you? I'm pretty surprised Emmett's already come back that quick and fighting a guy like Taporia down the rankings. Like, especially after just fighting for the interim belt. Like, I thought maybe he'd kind of wait around, see what like a Korean Zombie or a Ortega or like one of those more named guys are doing. Like, were you surprised to see him take that fight against Ilya?
Yeah, kind of. Like I get it. Like came so close to the title, and you fell short. So you like want to try to get back, and I understand that rush. Um, he's a little up there in his age, so maybe he wants to try to get right back to it without killing too much time. But I don't think. I mean, you can never doubt a guy, but I just fighting a guy like Taporia who's got some momentum. He's young. He's hungry, and I just think it favors him a little more. So that being said, this fight. So I mean, fighting's 50-50. Either guy can get knocked out, and they both possess that power.
And just final thing, like what is kind of the goal then for you? Like you kind of mentioned a bit, like maybe November, like ideal year. Like, what's this kind of look like for you after June 10th?
Yeah, I mean, God willing, I have no injuries. I could fight and stay healthy. I would, love to fight one more time this year. After my June fight, obviously, but I'm gonna go home. We have a trip planned to go home in June already. After go back home to Hawaii for like a couple weeks, and then get back home, take care of whatever needs to be taken care of, spend some time with the family because they deserve it because I'm an asshole when I'm in training camp. And and yeah, and then we'll get back on the horse because that's just what we do.
Well, Dan, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this again.
For sure, man. Good talking.
Yeah. All right, we're joined by UFC featherweight Kyle Nelson, who's back in action at home in Canada fighting. Kyle, how's it going, man?
It's going great. We're right in the middle of training camp, and yeah, everything's perfect. Training's going well, performing well. The weight's really good. So yeah, definitely one of my best camps yet.
Your last fight, like, what do you take away from that one with Choi? Like, obviously a draw and a very entertaining fight.
Yeah. So just more output. Again, I feel like I had Choi beat. Standing, I feel like I hurt him pretty good in that second round there. Again, he landed a couple calf kicks, but I think the calf kicks I landed did more damage. And the wrestling and stuff. And as far as the jits, I feel like I controlled him more. I came close to getting that rear naked choke in the first round. So yeah, I feel like I performed well. Again, the only thing maybe that I would do if I could go back is just a little bit more output. Again, I feel like I was beating him everywhere, so maybe if I just moved forward a little bit more and threw some more punches, I think the judges would have maybe recognized that a little bit more. And I think if I threw more punches, I would have continued to hurt him and possibly finished him.
After that fight, like, did you think you were gonna get another fight, or like, did the UFC talk to you about you getting another fight? Like, what kind of was the conversations after that one?
Yeah, no, we didn't. We didn't really hear anything straight from the UFC, but we knew, like, we had heard rumors and stuff that the UFC was coming to Canada, so we were pretty sure, if they were going to come to Canada, that they'd put me on the card. I didn't expect to be cut or anything coming off that draw. Again, after every fight, I think I've put on, exciting fights and stuff like that. And I think in the last two fights, I feel like, there were definitely toss-ups. I feel like I won both my last two fights, and a lot of people do, and I think some people in the UFC as well. So I think, they're not really holding that against me, but I definitely do need to go put on a good show on my next fight, June 10th.
And then you get the offer to fight in Calgary, or sorry, Vancouver. I know it was supposed to be Calgary at first, but like, how excited were you when your next fight is in Canada? Because obviously your debut is in Canada, and then since then, just been a lot of Apex fights.
Yeah. It's great that the UFC's come back to Canada. Toronto will be better, but who knows, maybe later on this year. Yeah, just being in Canada is going to be great. A lot of my fans are going to be able to fly out, fans and family and stuff, to BC and watch me fight live. It'll be nice to be in a big arena again. So, yeah, I'm super excited for this one.
And with Blake Builder, like, how familiar were you with him?
Before we got the fight, I wasn't super familiar. I watched his fight against Alex Morgan, the Contender Series, but I wasn't really analyzing him or breaking him down. I was just watching because Morgan's a Canadian. So once we got the offer and stuff, I started looking him up, and I kind of watched that fight. I watched his first fight in the UFC, started breaking down some of his skills and stuff. And yeah, I think it's a great matchup for me. He's undefeated in MMA, but I think he's got a good style for me to kind of capitalize on, and he's got some hype coming with him, being undefeated. So I think it's going to be a good win for me.
And then I know obviously the Jai fight was at lightweight, and like talking to you, it was going to be lightweight from there on out. And then they kind of give you that Choi fight and a lot of notice at 45. After that fight and that weight cut, like, did that just kind of cement yourself that you are a featherweight then?
Yeah. Before that, the fights I did at 145 were on shorter notice, and the weight cut was just hell. And I'm like, I was making weight, but I wasn't able to perform very well because of how drastically I had to cut the weight with the short notice. But once we got, again, the Choi fight with all that notice, the weight cut was a walk in the park. And again, for this fight, we got a little bit more notice. So again, it's been a walk in the park. I've been able to go in and perform well. And yeah, like fights like the Billy Q fight and Matt Sales fight, and a lot of my other 145 fights, I'd show up and I'd feel great for that first round. But then after that, the kind of weight cut would catch up with me. Whereas, in the Jai fight or the Bill Ho Choi fight, it never really caught up with me. I was able to kind of keep the pace up for, all the rounds. And yeah, and felt great in there. So we're going to, again, continue to improve on that weight cut. And this time should be even better.
What do you think fight week and everything will be like? Like, obviously, you experienced the Canadian fight week at 231, but I think you only had a couple of days and then the whole point was just trying to get down weight and like make the weight for Diego's fight. But this is kind of your first true one in Canada. Like, what's it like? What do you think fight week and like the ceremonial weigh-ins, everything's going to be like for you fighting in Canada?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we got, a lot of excited Canadian fans out. And yeah, I mean, just to be in Canada and be around, my countrymen. And then, I mean, not only is it going to be great to have, a ton of Canadian fans in the crowd, but now we also get to fight, with my training partners, Deanna Belbitza and Mike Malott, Jasudavicius, and, like just so many people that I get to train with every day. And now we're all kind of in a training camp together and ramping up for this fight. And we'll all be hanging out during fight week and stuff. So it's definitely going to be a lot more comfortable. And yeah, I think it's going to be lead to a lot smoother, kind of weight cut and fight camp.
That is something I didn't want to ask you about because I know you and Diana are really close training partners, but have you started going to Niagara Top Team then to work with like Mike and Jasmine, or how did that kind of work? 'Cause I always thought you were in Stony Creek just training up there.
Yeah, no, I've been going to Niagara Top Team for a couple of years now, maybe. Yeah, and then like before that, like I would still train with everyone from Top Team, just meet somewhere else. Like there was a while where we'd all go to Parabellum for sparring. There was a while we'd all go to BTC, and so I've been training with Mike and everyone for most of my career. Since I started coming down here to the GTA. So now like the spot to go is NTT on Thursdays for the pro sparring. So yeah, I mean I've been working with Anthony Romero, Aaron and Mike and Jazz and everyone for years now. Is just we kind of did different places over time.
And then with Blake, like you said, you think it's a good matchup for you. Like, how do you think you match up against him?
Yeah, so he's a Golden Glove boxer. So he's got some hands, he's got some kicks. But again, I don't think he's on my level as far as striking. I was in that game with Jai Herbert, with Doak Choi. I mean, both those guys have got some pretty spectacular knockouts. They're both known for their technical striking and their power. And, they weren't really able to do anything to me. So I think my skill set standing is going to be a lot better. And then as far as wrestling and jits, he's got, a little bit of takedown offense. But again, I think he's going to be a little bit smaller than me, a little bit shorter. I'm going to be bigger and stronger. I think my jiu-jitsu pedigree is better. So, yeah, I mean, really anywhere it goes, I'm pretty confident in this one. Again, I'm going to stay sharp and give him the respect he deserves. But, yeah, I'm more than willing to take this fight, in any area and finish it there.
Do you put any extra pressure on getting the finish just after the past two fights and thinking you won and just not letting it hit the scorecards at all?
No. In some of my earlier fights with the UFC, I put a little too much pressure on myself to finish, and that with the kind of short weight cuts, didn't work out very well for me. So, I just go back to kind of how I fought before the UFC where, I'm going to move forward and I'm going to throw punches, but I'm not, relying on each punch to be a knockout punch. I'm going to put together all my punches. I'm going to throw combos, and the knockout's going to come to me.
How much will the energy in the crowd like help you just kind of feed off of that in this fight then?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy the energy and the ceremonial weigh-ins and, the crowds and stuff leading up to the fight. But once I'm in there, I'm pretty dialed in. It's, it's nice to hear the crowd cheer and stuff. if I land a big shot or if I drop or something. But I try and just focus on the fight, and then I'll listen to the fans as they cheer after I knock them out.
You finished Blake. Like, what do you think that does for you in this division? Like, where do you think that puts you?
I'm hoping that it sets me up for another quick fight. And hopefully the UFC comes back to Canada soon. I feel great, having fought in London, last summer and then fighting again in February. I'd like to keep the fights moving, every, 3 months, 2 to 3 months. I feel a lot better, competing regularly. So, I'd like to knock him out and then, get another opponent lined up right away.
Yeah, I know. For everything I've kind of heard is the UFC's getting back to that 3 Canadian events a year starting next year. Like, this was just kind of, I think this might be the one and done this year, but like, is that something you would just like hope is just bang out on all the Canadian cards, and then maybe if a 4th fight comes up, like that kind of works for you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always, I like the traveling and stuff, and I enjoyed England for a little bit, but if I could fight at home, I would definitely take that over the traveling.
Just 2 more things. Like, how much pressure is on you going into this fight? Like, obviously, just coming off the draw and the 2 losses. Like, is there a lot of pressure on you in this one?
If there is, I don't feel it. I've been competing so long now. I don't really, look too much into that stuff. Whether the bookies in Vegas have me as a favorite or an underdog or this or that, or I don't let any of those outside pressures, slow me down or weigh on me at all. We've got our game plan, and none of that's going to affect me, fight night. So there's no sense in wasting any energy, thinking about that.
And just final thing, like, what is kind of the goal then for you this year? Like, already 2nd fight in June. Like, is it 1 more? Are you hoping 2 more? Like, what is kind of the goal then for you?
I'd like to do 3 or 4, if we can keep the ball rolling. But it's hard to say. We got to, leave it up to the UFC. But yeah, I know I'm going to put on a fight for sure at this, June 10th in Vancouver. So I'm sure the UFC will be excited to get me back in right away.
Well, Kyle, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this again.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me on.
All right, we're jumping UFC flyweight Jasmine Jasudavicius, who gets a home country fight. Jasmine, how's it going?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing well. Like, how exciting is that? I know when you signed on to Miranda, it was somewhere in Canada. It was like Toronto, then Calgary, but now Vancouver. But like, how excited are you that it is just in Canada? You can fight at home.
I'm super excited. I was hoping for Toronto, but anywhere in Canada, I'll take that. And Vancouver, it's beautiful there. It's absolutely gorgeous. So, it's going to be a great trip. And I can't wait to get in there.
Were you surprised to be offered Miranda Maverick? Like, she's ranked 15th. She's like been someone the UFC's been high on. Like, were you surprised that they offered you her?
No, so she called me out after my last fight, and so like that's how that matchup got made. I wasn't surprised because she called me out, and I said, "Yeah, sure, let's go." You know what I mean? But yeah, it was like sweet that it was like super easy, streamless. We just both signed off, and here we are.
Why do you think she called you out? Like, do you think there's something that she sees in you? Like, why do you think she called you out?
I don't know. I guess, she called me out because she thought that she could beat me, but, that's, I don't know what her thinking was.
What have you made of her UFC run? Like, she's obviously started 2-0, and then she fought Macy and Aaron, lost to them, and then kind of won 2 straight fights and looked pretty good in them.
Yeah, no, she looked good. I thought she won that Macy Barber fight, and she's solid. She's solid everywhere. She's a top prospect. She's up there for a reason. She's obviously really good. But I'm really good too. So.
You have a bit of a reach advantage. I think it's like 2.5 or 3 inches. Like, how important do you think that's going to be in the fight?
I think that would be important. It's always good to have reach on the side for sure.
And training camp, is it all at Niagara then for this one?
Yeah, we decided to stay at home for this one. I thought it was like a great idea. I have great training partners at home, very like similar style to her, and we have like a bit of like a hotbed right now. I got tons of girls like coming to help me out and train, and all my coaches are super dedicated. Like, they're making practices, like full team practices, just on stuff that I need to work on, and so I'm very fortunate for that, and I think it's gonna be like a sick camp. I mean, so far it's been great.
How much do you think like people seeing you and Mike like get to the UFC and have success from that region like has benefited? Where now there's girls and guys like signing up for him and be like, wow, someone from my region, like my town did it, like why can't I do it and whatnot?
Exactly, like it makes it more attainable. They know us, and people like see us, and it just they see the work that Mike and I put in, and they're doing the same thing. They're on the same path, and so I think that's why a little bit more traction has come.
And how enjoyable will Fight Week be now that Mike obviously got added to the card?
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. We always make these jokes about it. Yeah, it's gonna be 2 weddings, and so I'm looking forward to it. My last one, I got to fight on the same card as him, and it's like a great dynamic. Fight Week is so much fun. We have like the whole crew there and everything.
And the way it's the way they have the card right now, I don't know if it's gonna stay like that. Is obviously Mike's on the pay-per-view, and I think like you're a couple fights right before him, so I guess it gives you like it's kind of perfect where you have just enough time to kind of get done your fight, get done with all the media, then get ready to watch Mike's fight.
Yeah, exactly. Like I can't wait. It's gonna be such a fun night.
Oh, what do you think Fight Week and like that atmosphere is gonna be like for you guys? Like obviously been a long time since the UFC came to Canada. Like it was Vancouver in like 2019. Like I know a lot of people from like I live like an hour north of Toronto that are going out there just to get there, like because it's the first event back in Canada. It's like, what do you think that Fight Week and like everything's gonna be like for all you Canadians being on this card?
I think it's gonna be like cool. There's definitely gonna be extra media for us, which is like it's sick because MMA is growing in Canada, but I feel like having this event, like it's gonna blow up even more. And the fact that Mike and I can like kind of be like helping that propel that along is it's like a really cool thing. Like we're super honored to be able to do that.
And with Miranda, like, how do you think you match up against her? Because she obviously has some good wrestling, but I know she can keep it standing at some points as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, she's a good fighter, but I think we match up super well. I think it's gonna be a good fight. We both wanna like impose our will on each other, and I think it's gonna be a banger. Definitely one for the fans.
I know Miranda is the betting favorite. Like, does that surprise that you're the underdog, or do you think it's more just because of who like Miranda's fought and like her being ranked?
Yeah, no, for sure. So I would imagine she would be the betting favorite. She's ranked higher than me, and exactly what you said. Yeah, she's fought a bunch of girls in the UFC already. She's been in the UFC longer, so it makes sense.
How do you kind of see it playing out? Because Miranda's a pretty durable like person. Like, it's hard to put her away.
Yeah, I don't think she's been finished too much. I don't
think she's ever been finished.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, she'll definitely be durable. She's never been finished in the UFC.
What do you think a win here does for you? Like, Miranda's obviously 15. Like, especially if you can finish her, like being the first person to finish her. Like, what do you think a win here does for you?
Well, I mean, it catapults me up for sure. But I mean, honestly, I haven't even really thought of it. I'm so zoned in on like this fight. I'm not like thinking of any days past it. So I don't know. Like when the doors open, then we'll see what prevails.
I know this is your 4th fight in the UFC. I know most contracts run 4 fights. Like, have you already re-signed then before this one?
Yeah, I re-signed, but before this, so yeah.
What's that like for you to get that second deal in the UFC? Because like getting to the UFC is kind of like special. Then obviously getting the first win special. Then getting that kind of second contract is kind of like that next goal.
Yeah, exactly. It's like one of those like stepping stones in a way. So it was really cool to be able to do that.
Is there any added pressure of like fighting in Canada, of like having to get the win, or like having to put on a good performance, like with all the Canadians in the arena?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's pressure, but I don't know. I feel like being in Canada, it's like I have them all like with me, so it's not really like a negative thing. You know what I mean? Like I feel like they're behind me. They're like coming into battle with me.
And how much will that energy just kind of help you in the fight? Like UFC fought Kay in California, where she's from, so the crowd was behind her. But now this time around, like the crowd's gonna be behind you, and like how much will that energy just kind of help you in the fight?
I'm gonna love that. I love the crowd. I when it was like COVID and we had to fight without crowds, holy, I did not like that at all. But yeah, I love having a crowd. I mean, even at the Apex, it's nice because there's enough people that it seems like you can hear enough. But yeah, in a full stadium, that's the best.
And just final thing, like already second fight this year. So like, what is kind of the goal then for this year? Because it kind of sets you up to have a pretty active year, having 2 already in the middle of June.
Sorry, we got one of those emergency alerts.
Yeah, I just got the same one.
Yeah.
I was just saying, like, you get past Miranda, like, what do you think will win? Like, what is kind of the goal the rest of the year? Because, like, already having 2 fights by beginning of June, like, kind of sets you up to have a pretty active year. And then you obviously be ranked, which can set you up to have a bigger year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it sets me up nice, but like I said, I'm not looking past this one at all. So I'm not too sure what will come of it. But yeah.
Well, Jasmine, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this again.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.